Hello and welcome to another SkySlope tutorial video. This one is going to be showing our office administrators how to input a transaction. By now you should have already seen the video on how to input a listing into SkySlope. If you haven't, then please go back and do that. But if you have, or if you're just here to refresh your memory on how to input a transaction, first thing we're going to do is go into our working documents folder so that we can look for the transaction. And so you see I have one sent to me here. I'm going to click on the blue link to open it up. And again, I really can't stress enough just how useful it is if you're doing stuff like this in SkySlope to be using two monitors. So I'm going to drag this over to the other monitor so that way I can look at the details while I am inputting it into SkySlope. And I want to assign it, but I don't have a file set up first. So first, the example I'm going to show you, uh, I'm going to be the selling agent. So actually, yeah, let's just go with that. So we'll go to the transaction tab here, and you can see there's my transactions. You can click on them and cancel them or archive them. That's another way of saying like close them if they've already closed. We got the check. You can delete, like I said in the last video, that's another tricky thing. It's kind of just if you have an incomplete file you didn't mean to make or something like that. We're looking for a create transaction. And like I said in the last video, I'm not going to be able to use either of these because I'm using a fake address. So I'm going to just click out of here. But normally you'd want to use one of these, either the MLS or the address search. So for the agent, oh yeah, last name first. Greg. I think Gregory is my agent account. Let's go with that. I didn't really show this in the last video, but you can also add co-agents. If there's a referral, an in-house referral, say somebody's working as a team or something like that, you're going to want to always be sure to add the co-agent. So in this case, I'm just going to make my dad the co-agent here. And see it says share there at the bottom, the blue button I clicked. That is important to note because if you don't add the co-agent, so if I didn't add my dad here and he was another agent on the file, he wouldn't have access to this in SkySlope as an agent. He wouldn't be able to go in and see the paperwork there. So it's important to add them for that reason, and we're going to see later on in the commission tab, it's important for accounting that you add them there too. So the checklist type, this is going to be a residential. I'm going to input my fake MLS number, which is required for the transactions. If it's really just required that something go here though, so if it's not listed in the MLS, I'm just going to show you an example of that. You can just put NA. They just want something in the MLS field. Year built, we're going to say this is 1952. Street number is 456. Fake street. We're going to do the cool little zip code trick where it enters the city for us. The type, you can do, sale if they're the selling agent, listing if they're the listing agent. If they're on both sides, you can do both listing and sale. Or if they're a referral, I set up other there. So this is going to be sale. Source, another upcall, floor time. Office lead, I've never really been sure what exactly to do with this. So far, I've just used it. The way SkySlope explained it to me is they'd often say if this is a relocation lead or not. So I only use it if it's like the BHHS relocation. I don't even use it if it's Prime Alliance. So I almost always click no to this. The closing date. If you don't have a closing date, if it's like a new construction to be determined or something like that, it's going to require that you enter something here. So I would just enter a good date for you to check up on it with the agent, see if it's still pending or what's going on with it. Let's guess we have 325, 715. So you have closing date, sales price, acceptance date. All this stuff is required is now entered. So let's just take a quick look at stuff that's not required. Escrow number. If you have maybe an escrow file number you want to put in there, I usually don't use it there. I'll use it in the contacts we'll look at later. File ID is an important one to note. That is where accounting will enter the DPN number for the file. I know I don't really have much use for DPN numbers except for when I'm trying to tell accounting about a commission change or something. Sometimes it's useful for them to have that. So if they ever ask you what the DPN number is, that's where you find it right there, is in that file ID. So now we're going to go to the next tab. We're going to enter our contacts. So this one is Steven Seller. He has the address of steveseller@gmail.com. His address is the same as the property address. We're going to enter that there. Phone number. And it's just, when you're going through this contacts tab, it's important to remember to always click save before you go on to the next thing. Usually won't let you go to the next tab until you do. Purchaser. Just going to enter in all their information here. I'm just going to go ahead and skip all this. We don't really need to do all that. The phone number is required. It's required because I am the selling agent on this one. If you were entering the listing agent file, the buyer's phone number wouldn't be a requirement. So we're just going to go to the next tab over here. Now, this is where you're going to enter all the title and escrow information. So I'll just bring back our document that I'm getting all this information from over here. You can see I have our title rep information here, our escrow rep set information here. You can see how this would get really tedious to type over and over and over again on all these transactions. So fortunately we have this search contacts bar up at the top here. So Kelly Strand does a lot of stuff for our office. And if you make any change to the contacts, it'll save as a separate contact. So sometimes you get a little cluttered here and you get a bunch of these. I can do a different video showing the contact system and how to clean that up, but usually the bottom one's the one you want, the most recent with the most recent changes on it. And you see it just auto-filled all our data there, making my life a lot easier. So I'm just going to click save there. I'm going to enter the escrow information. If you're new to doing paperwork at BHHS, it's important to note that escrow officer's email is very important to accounting. That's how they get the commission disbursement over to the escrow officer so our agents can get paid. So it's really pretty important to everybody that we get the email address for the escrow officer in there. So if you don't have that with the paperwork, make sure you try and get that from the agent or from the escrow company. So that's all we need here. You can also enter attorney company. That doesn't really apply so much in Washington. So we're going to click the next tab. And we're going to have the agent representing the other side. In this case, it's just not Greg Brighter. Whoops, that's his first name. Phone number, not BHHS. And for down here, it says broker tax ID. We're actually using this field instead for the office's MLS ID. That should be on the cover sheet. So in this case, I just did the inverse of my office's 1771. So we save that. And you can submit here, but I like to have as much information as I can. Like I mentioned in the last video, accounting is going to use this file. The agent's going to use this file. The more stuff we have in here, the better it is for everybody. And this is another instance to show you the search contacts thing. So I'm just Mark Deniston's going to be the lender on this. So it just enters in all his information here for me. If there was a home warranty, I could enter the information on there. And again, there's miscellaneous contact, which I've never used, but maybe you want to put something down there. You can. And then I'm just going to click submit up at the top here. So now we reach the commission page. So there's a few things to note here. You can see the required information is pretty basic, just sales price and what is the commission. So this is going to be just normal 3% commission. If it was a dollar amount, you could put the commission here. If it was a personal sale and I wasn't taking any commission on this, something, I think, they just get one a year. You put down, you have to put some amount of commission in there. You can't just have zero. If I did that and try to go to the next tab, it says sales commission percentage or sales commission amount cannot be zero. So lowest you can make it is a penny. But in this case, I'm just going to do 3%. And you see, I made my dad the co-agent on this. We're going to do a 50-50 split. That's really important for accounting to know when they're working up this information, to know what the agents are going to get paid. If I want to add a referring agent here, I could. I really don't get this about SkySlope at all, but you see you have all this information here that you can enter. Only the first name and last name go anywhere. If you entered all this in and click save and then opened it back up, it's gone. I don't understand what it's even there for. So all you're going to need to do is the first and last name. So let's say Prime Alliance is involved. There's a Prime Alliance referral. I'd put Prime Alliance in there or something, but I'm not going to do a referral on this one. So I got the commission information entered there. If there was a referral too, I'd probably enter the referral amount here. Just, more information the better. I also will leave little notes in here to accounting, like if there's Sunshine Kids, I'll put that down there. They can see that from the cover sheet, but it just doesn't hurt to make sure everybody's on the same page. And I can click submit up at the top. And now we're ready to apply things to the checklist. But you see, if I go into the Documents tab, we never put it into our file from that Office inbox, so we have to go back into our working inbox. Click the little check mark for our transaction. Go to Assign. And up at the top here, we're going to use the search bar, 456. Click on that. You can see my transactions here. We're going to click the Assign button off to the right. And then go up to the search bar and enter the address to go back to our file. Okay. So if we go to Documents, I didn't mention this in the last video, but a lot of times you'll have scan, they'll come in and it'll just be from the scanners from our office, and it'll just be a bunch of numbers. And it's really important to rename those when you get them in, because maybe you remember what it is, but when accounting's going through and looking for a specific document and they've got just a bunch of scans and numbers, they'd have to click through every one of the files that are in there, and it gets really tedious. So you want to just, click this rename button off to the side. I can save it as transaction scan. I think some offices save it as transaction package. I mean, as long as it's obvious that, this is the whole thing right here. So I'm going to hit split to split it up into different documents on the checklist. This seemed to show up pretty well in the last video, so hopefully that continues in this one. You see the cover sheet there. Less detail report, purchase and sale. I should go to like 7. Let's check. And you can see when I change what the page goes to, the page from on the next line automatically changes there, so that's nice. Go to legal description. You have a 22D. I'm not going to go through this all the time. The last video was a little long, so you get the idea here. That's how you split it up. But let's say you come across something that you don't have on the checklist. Like, let's say there's a 22AR. I don't have that on the checklist there. Well, I'm going to break it up anyway. Type in 22AR. And you see I didn't select any checklist items. So what happens then when I click split and assign? This nice job. Your items have been split. 5 items were split and assigned to the checklist. 1 item was split and not assigned. That 22 AR there is going to be the item that was split and not assigned. So just keep that in mind. So now we go back to the checklist here. You can see the earnest money receipt required. I think different offices might do this differently, but for our office, we only accept this when it's the earnest money receipt we get back from either escrow or the selling agent's office if it's one of our listings and the earnest money was held at, Coldwell Banker Bain does that a lot or something like that. That's that's what we're looking for there. So oftentimes if the agent turns in the transaction on time right after a mutual acceptance, that's going to show up as required. I just tell our agents, don't worry about it. We're going to track down the earnest money receipt or you can turn it into us when you get it. But that's probably going to show up required most of the time. So now we have that 22 AR we want to assign to this checklist though. So we're going to click, in order to add a new checklist spot for it, we're going to click add new up here at the top with this little green button. And it's going to add a new checklist item in here. I'm going to type 22 AR. Now usually I instinctively hit enter there and you'll see what happens when I do. It just brings up this little pop-up menu to like save something. It's for a button that's up at the top. You don't want to hit enter here is the point. You want to just click done. And so you see, it's still showing up as required though. I need to attach the document to this checklist item here. So there's this little clip mark, paper clip button here. It says attach. And then when you click on that attach, it shows you all the documents that are not already assigned to the checklist. So you see I have the big transaction scan. I didn't assign the whole package to anything on the checklist, so that's going to show up in there. And then you also have, let's get that out of the way. I also have the 22 AR, so that's what I want to assign. So I'm going to click that there. And so that's how you do that. And that is all you need to get it set up for your manager to review. But actually, before I close out the video here, let me just show you one other thing. Let's say this was a listing. And so I have a listing, it's sold. I want to turn a listing into a transaction. I go to the listing tab is one way to do it. I can type 123 for my fake street listing we did in another video. Bring that up. I can click on this once. I should also note it earlier. When you're in the transaction or listing tab and you're looking at these files, in order to open them, if you click on them, you'll highlight them once. To actually get into them, you have to double click. So we'll just go back, do that again. But this time I just want to highlight it, and I can come up here and click on accepted contract. That would be one way to do that for a listing file. Another way to do that would be you go 123 and just go up here into the file itself and to go into the checklist, and then from there you can click on accepted contract. So that is how you set up a transaction in SkySlope.